Hello everyone, this is Stepan and welcome to another game analysis video on hanging pawns. Alexander Grischuk had the white pieces against Sergey Karjakin in round 10 of the candidates tournament. Before this round, Sergey was at 50% with 4.5 out of 9 and Grischuk had half a point more, so not an ideal performance by either player at the start of the tournament. And this one started with pawn to d4 by Grischuk, knight to f6, c4, e6 and g3 by Alexander Grischuk, and we have yet another Catalan opening, which seems to be played more frequently than any other at top level, which is understandable considering how AlphaZero managed to humiliate Stockfish using it as its main weapon with white pieces. Bishop to b4 by Sergey Karjakin, which is the main move, bishop d2, and the bishop retreats to e7, which is a very common idea in the Catalan, the point of which is to take away the d2 square for the knight and to force white to move the bishop twice to develop comfortably. And if white had covered the check with knight to d2, then the knight would have to move again for the bishop to be able to develop, so black is reasoning that white will have to waste another tempo to have comfortable development, which is justifying his loss of tempo actually, because it took him a move to develop the bishop to e7. We have bishop to g2, fianchettoing the bishop, the Catalan system, d5, striking in the center by Karjakin, knight to f3, castles, and knight b to d7, and these are all really common moves. Queen to c2 by Grischuk, preparing to recapture on c4 with the queen, and not going for Caruana's preferred move in this position, which is queen to b3, which serves the same purpose of defending c4, but it also enables white to develop the knight on c3 as well, because with the queen now on c2, if white puts the knight on c3, the c4 pawn would be undefended. c6 here by Karjakin, rook to c1, and the position has now actually transposed to a Bogo-Indian defense, which has a similar structure, but it's a transposition now. It's no longer officially a Catalan opening. We have b6 by Karjakin, a4. Grischuk doesn't settle for a slow opening. He immediately tries to win space on the queen side aggressively. Knight to e4, attacking the dark squared bishop, and Grischuk retreats to e1, of course not giving away his bishop square. a5, Karjakin prevents Grischuk from pushing on with his pawns, and that's actually really important because if he had allowed b4 and a5, white would have a definite edge in the position and much more space on the queen side. Knight b to d2, challenging the perfectly placed knight on e4, and Karjakin isn't forced to take in this position. He could retreat to d6 or to f6, which would have been perhaps a bit better, but he exchanges with knight takes d2. And here in this position, Alexander Grischuk makes a strange choice. It's not a bad move or a blunder, but just a visually strange move. He recaptured the knight with his own knight, which doesn't really make sense, because he played it even though he could have taken with the queen and the bishop. And now he will have to spend an extra move developing his poor dark squared bishop stuck on e1, and the knight isn't really that useful on d2, and apart from adding to the defense of c4 and preventing a very unlikely e5, e4 maneuver by Karjakin, this was actually the worst possible option, I think. The engines think that they're all about the same, but they also say that taking with the knight was the worst way to take. Perhaps taking with the bishop was the best, just to develop it immediately back to d2, because now on e1 it's completely useless for the next five or six moves. Bishop to f6 now by Karjakin, attacking the undefended d4 pawn, and Grischuk doesn't defend. He reacts with c takes d5, c takes d5, and now he plays a very precise move, a very energetic move, and the best move in this position, e4. He exchanges his weakness on d4, which is his only weakness in the position, for Karjakin's strong d5 pawn, which is actually a high-class positional idea, and this now makes his position a bit dominant compared to black's. And here we have bishop takes d4, Karjakin is basically forced to exchange, and knight to b3 first, gaining a tempo and chasing the bishop away, and after the bishop retreats to f6, now e takes d5, and bishop takes d5, regaining the pawn, and attacking the rook and gaining one more tempo by attacking the rook on a8. The rook is forced to retreat, it goes to a7, bishop to g2, moving the bishop back because any discoveries by the queen on the bishop would have been possibly devastating, because if the knight, let's say, moves to c5, then the bishop would be undefended on d5. h6, making some luft, bishop to c3, and rook to c7. And now Grischuk unfortunately goes for a tactical exchange of queens, and it was the most precise move, but perhaps declining a trade would have given him greater winning chances, and because of his situation in the tournament, I think he definitely should have pushed for a win. And he now takes the bishop on f6, allowing Karjakin to take his queen, but he can take back black's queen on d8 in return. So we have rook takes c2, bishop takes d8, rook takes c1 with check, rook takes c1 and rook takes d8, taking the bishop back. And now they have transposed to a very boring and drawing middle game endgame position in which neither side really has any initiative and it's completely equal. The game continues for a few more moves with rook to d1, developing and pinning the knight to the rook, king to f8. Karjakin is now doing the only thing in the position with which he can improve, and that's marching the king closer up to his pieces and defending the rook that way. f4 by Grischuk, taking up some space on the king side, and king to e7. Karjakin is now defending the rook so the knight could move, and now Grischuk prevents Karjakin's king from going any further by checking with rook to e1, and the king is forced to go back to f8, so king f8, rook d1 once again, king to e7, rook e1 check, and king to f8, and after this repetition they agree to a draw. And I'm sad to see these many boring draws at the candidates tournament and the players not really going all in and risking to lose by pushing for a win at all costs, because I believe this format is one of the rare occasions in which they really shouldn't be bothered by losing a couple of rating points or be bothered with which place they end up on the scoreboard, because all that matters is to win, and only the winner gets to be the challenger for the World Championship title. And coming in second or coming in third or eighth doesn't really make any difference. And that's why I can't understand Grischuk's trade of queens in this game, or the fact that Ding and Wesley So drew after 90 minutes today, which is completely absurd. But it's their decision, and there must be something behind their reasoning that I can't understand. Okay everyone, thanks very much for watching, and stay tuned for more games from the candidates, as I will be covering all of them, and let's hope that they are much more exciting than this one. Cheers, bye!